Shalom, family. It's good to see everybody here. You know, as usual, there's no day without drama, and this day is not going to disappoint either. So, China has made an announcement that less freight is coming to the U.S. Now I know what Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, I know what he means now. At first, I did not know what he meant. You know, I didn't know that man was recovering from throat cancer, but he's recovering from throat cancer. I didn't even know that. Well, he made a comment a few days ago that the worst is coming in 60 days. And for the last couple of days, I was trying to figure out what he meant by the worst is coming in 60 days. All right. So, y'all, let me share my screen and I'm going to go over what I found. All right. There is a big cancellation of freight ships that were supposed to come over to the US, which means you're going to be looking at empty shelves in about 60 days. Now I know what he means. So cancellations of Chinese freight ships begins as bookings plummet. So anytime a freight ship is coming over here with goods, they have to book those ships. And they said it's hardly none being booked to the U.S. So let's get into it, y'all. U.S. importers are beginning to notify an increase in cancellation freight boats that are supposed to leave out of China and carry goods to the U.S. as a result from President Donald Trump's tariffs, the escalation of tensions. This is it in this trade war. So a total of 80 blank or canceled sailings out of China have been recorded by the freight company HLS Group. It wrote in a recent note to clients that with the trade war between China and the U.S. leading to a demand plummet, carriers have started to suspend or adjust trans-Pacific services. Major Ocean Freight Alliance 1 suspended until further notice. So they're not sending any ships to the U.S. at all. And so they said they had ships coming to the U.S. booked all the way up until May. Those are canceled. So not only are they en route, so you're going to see big drops at ports like the one in Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington, North Carolina. They said will be impacted. That is a main port where a lot of goods come in from China. And yeah, so they're canceling all the routes that goes to Wilmington, North Carolina. The impact of the diminished freight container traffic to North America will be significant for many links in the economy and supply chain, including ports and logistics companies moving the freight. If each sail is carrying 8,000 to 10,000 units, that would equal a decline in freight traffic. So overall, they said normally it would be 640 to 800,000 containers from multiple ships coming here, but a lot of that is canceled. So, and lead to decreased crane operations at ports, lower fees that could be collected, and declines in container pickups and transports by truck, rail, and to warehouses for storage. Wow, that's right. If there's hardly no freight coming into the U.S., then that would impact trucking. Because it's the trucks that transport all of these goods that come out of China once it reaches the shores of North America. So, wow, that's going to really impact the trucking industry and train. So, the World Trade Organization warned on Wednesday that the outlook for the global trade is deteriorating sharply in wake of Trump's tariffs plan. J.B. Hunt shares hits that there's lower levels that they are seeing now that they have not seen since November of 2020. And at that time, we were still on lockdown. And he said that was the last time we saw low levels of freight coming in. So they said now it is putting even the trucking companies in uncertainty from the tariffs. We have no way of knowing how significant this drop in orders will be on vessel schedules. That's what they're saying. There is no model that they can look at because we haven't had a trade war that got this far out of hand before. So they don't have nothing to measure it against. What can I tell you? is the majority of containers on the vessels servicing Asia to U.S. trade routes is China. Yes, 80% of the imports that come in here come from China because the U.S. was dumb enough to give all their manufacturing work to their enemy. I still don't understand who the hell does that. These people over here hate me. Let me just go do business with them. Who does that? So anyway, we won't go to zero containers, but we will see a significant decrease in containers. And as a result, in the future, we will see a massive rift. Blank sailings announced. So, y'all, this is going to be major. And the U.S. is now dependent heavily on China when it really didn't have to be this way. But it is. It is. So, booking volumes from the last week of March to the first week of April across the globe and U.S. trade lanes plummeted. There are sharp decreases in bookings across several categories. Now, these are the things that are going to be impacted the most in the next 60 days, y'all. Apparel and accessories, wool, fabrics, and textiles, they said, will be down more than 50%. Major product categories from China that are moved in containers: apparel, toys, furniture, sports equipment, all of which are subject to steep tariffs. As a result of the decrease in containers, ocean carriers will not only cancel vessels, but also adjust or cancel vessel routes, commonly called vessel strings. So these are routes that go from China to Vancouver to Tacoma. These routes are like a main route that they use all the time when they bring imports into the U.S. from out of Asia. And it actually goes the opposite way, too. If the U.S. is shipping things to Asia, they use that same route. So, y'all, this don't look good at all. This don't look good at all. All this means is the inflation is probably going to be through the roof. So not only are we going to be looking at empty shelves, we're going to also be looking at inflation for the little bit that's on the shelves. Believe this mess. Let me see. Let me see if I can play this video for y'all. Hold on. Let me share my screen. There's a video right here on this, and I want y'all to listen to it. All right, hold on. Move that. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to play this video, and this is on CNBC.
Join the club and let me teach you to become a better investor.
Jim Cramer is the best teacher that I've ever found because he's honest and he's transparent.
Get invested. Join the club today. Go to cnbc.com/join Jim.
As the trade standoff between the U.S. and the rest of the world continues, we are starting to see signs of a pullback in U.S. demand, particularly on goods from China. CNBC's Lorian LaRocco is here to explain. Lorian, it's interesting because just overnight we saw the U.S. retail sales showing some, strength in pre-tariffs buying. And here we are, we're talking about a trade coming off globally.
Most definitely. Good morning, Sherry. Yeah, what we're seeing here is, so it takes about 7 weeks for goods from China to arrive into the United States and then go back. It's called a vessel string. And we are seeing 80 of these strings, if you will, being canceled. And that's because of the enormous amount of orders that we spoke about last week about being canceled. We've had over 50% of orders ranging from apparel, wool, textiles, accessories, sneakers, all the lower end goods that are not going to be coming in. And this is significant because the trains, the ocean carriers, the warehouses, the trucks, they make their money by transporting these boxes. And so you're looking at over some 500,000 containers that some analysts are anticipating to be cut back in this global trade. So it's going to have a significant impact on the logistics companies. And so, over the next several weeks, we're going to see even more cancellations as we see these pullback in orders. And, until we see some sort of, belly to the bar and having these conversations, we're just going to see this uncertainty and the further pullback in orders. Martin?
Yeah, and Lorianne, what we're basically seeing is friction building up in the whole global trading system, right? But I want you to talk to us about the end game, or one of the end games of President Trump's strategy, which is trying to bring supply chains and manufacturing and jobs sort of back home, right? You've been working hard on a CNBC survey, I know, which shows that that's not really happening simply because it's going to end up being too expensive.
Most definitely. Exactly. We reached out to a multitude of different organizations as well as the shippers out there. And get this, 72% said that if they were going to relocate their supply chains, it would not be in the United States. It would actually, 61% said it'd be more cost effective to go to another country, a lower tariffed country. And it's tariff hopping. They're going to be seeing yes, I'm going to have to suffer some pain by, paying a tariff, but it's going to be lower than staying in China. And so when you're looking at these relocation costs, where it's staffing, products, machinery, insurance, all of these things add up. The United States is quite pricey, and that's the reason why they're looking at other countries as alternatives, looking at Cambodia, Malaysia. I spoke with a company last week from Cambodia. They're looking at Sri Lanka. So it's not even just China. You're looking at this whole rejiggering of the supply chain on a global scale. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. But as of right now, the United States is not the top pick.
Tariff hopping, yeah. I mean,
back to you guys.
The only hopping that I know, bar hopping, I guess. But Lorianne, really quickly, because I think the conversation is definitely around automation these days. Because if these companies have to move their manufacturing to the United States, they're saying it won't be really American workers getting their jobs. It's really automation. So we're talking robots, and that is a big narrative that's playing out. So it's not exactly aligned with what President Trump might be looking to achieve.
It's definitely not, Sherry. You hit the nail right on the head. I mean, 40, more than double. That's what they were telling me in terms of the cost. And so while there is the argument that automation helps spark like higher paying jobs for those that are there, yes, that is true. I've seen some really cool robots out there in warehousing, but the bottom line is it's not going to add to jobs. And more importantly, looking at this container pullback that we just touched on, a lot of people that I'm talking to are really afraid of a logistics recession and layoffs. You're not going to need truckers. You're not going to need warehouse workers. You're not going to need as many longshoremen if you have this tremendous amount of pullback for the container. So there's a lot coming down the pike from a labor standpoint that we're going to have to look at.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's going to have a domino effect. So no, this is going to also impact not only the economy, but like I said, the trucking industry, the rail lines that carry these goods across the country. This is going to really, I mean, look, jobs are already letting a lot of people go. Now you're going to have another round of people that are going to have to lay off because these shipping containers that normally come in here, they ain't coming. So, yeah, so now that's going to put people out of work. So, look, y'all, one thing about us, we're resilient. We have been through the worst of the worst, but I still wanted to give you heads up on this whole situation because the empty shelves, they said it takes about up to 7 weeks for one freight to make it from China to the US. So now you're cutting all of those out and it's barely going to be any coming over now. So the problem is Donald Trump kicks off these trade wars, but what is he going to replace it with? And I was reading something last night from a political pundit, and they were saying Donald Trump does everything with no plan. He just tossed something out there to see what's going to happen. But actually, he really technically never have any kind of plan. And I do believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. So life is about to get more difficult, but if anybody is prepared for it, y'all, it is us. It is us. And I really, truly believe that. Dark Skin Brother, thank you so much for the super chat. It's about to be really hard to find certain products. Yes. Yes. And they're trying to tell you in a nice way. It's going to be some things that are going to be hard to come by. So, especially, we know we got some people that are old school. They don't want to do everything online. They want to walk in a store. Well, you may be walking into a store and looking at a lot of empty shelves. And it will begin this summer. And they're telling you the last time it was like this was in 2020 when we were all on lockdown. Yep, stock up, y'all. Stock up if you can and put as much, and I know sometimes it is very difficult. I know, but save as much money as you can. If you can put aside a little bit of money and not touch it, try to do that, especially if you are employed or even if you're collecting unemployment. Look, put $20 aside and don't touch it and just let that accumulate. Each time you get paid, put a little bit of something aside. You got to have an emergency fund. Put it aside. And if you can stock up the best that you can. As I had told many of you before, I'm going to do as many sales on my Etsy, and I'm going to start doing it more on Shopify as well, because I do have my gray hair reversal oil out on Shopify, and I can drop those products down a few dollars so that you can buy them. And and plus I'm going to be having a sale in the beginning of May because I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary of selling my hair products. So I will be giving you some good discounts when I can. That's all I can do. Yeah, and I hope it helps. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll do the best I can to give you heads up on these things that will impact us in the coming weeks and months. Shalom, family.